So this is another one of those low light videos, early in the morning. It's not so early actually, so I suppose it's 5:30 or something like that. Every morning I wake up and part of the morning ritual is to habit. Maybe it's not a ritual, maybe it's just a habit. Part of that is to lie there quietly for a short while and let the brain process what the brain will process. Try and formulate a plan for the rest of the day. And it seems to be nowadays more and more, I wouldn't say it's muddled up, but there's more complexity to it, that's for damn sure. And when you look around you every day at the world, I can imagine how that's the same for everybody else. I suppose for some people, actually, they're blissfully unaware. I think actually the majority of people are blissfully unaware. I think a lot of people are just carrying on, like going through the motions. It's like Groundhog Day, you know. Go through the motions. Eat, sleep, repeat. Whatever's in between. They probably don't remember too much. Somebody yesterday on one of the groups, excuse me, somebody yesterday on one of the groups posted a meme or something about frame of reference and reality, or that was the gist of it anyway. And you can sort of understand why things are in the state they are if everybody's frame of reference is screwed up the way it is. And that leads to all sorts of other thoughts about, well, is that intentional? I can't understand how it can't be intentional, giving the people so many things to concentrate on and so many distractions that they can't actually process that properly. And I look at the way I process reality, what this reality is, and most of the time how very different that is from the majority of people. I'm very fortunate to have a small group of friends. We speak the same language when it comes to reality. We speak a similar language when it comes to reality, but it's obviously not all identical because their life experience is different from mine, and as you're obviously aware, that's what helps shape what you perceive as reality. And then I watch things on the internet. I don't watch TV. I pick up smatterings of information on the internet, on this YouTube thing and other places. And I look at other people's realities, or their representation of them, their public representation of them. And I wonder about the truth of it, but I look at their story, how they perceive what they perceive. And it's fairly straightforward. It's fairly easy to detect that they are basing everything on the big story in the background that they've been fed. I made the point the other day, I think I might have made it here in the past, I actually don't remember. I made the point the other day to somebody about how do you know what you know? Like now, I know the Hodidas are scared of heights. I can hear them. But how do you know what you know? How do you know, when you go back in memory, in your own memory, what physical evidence do you have that you've experienced something? Do you remember how far back can you go in history, in your own life, and determine that something was real, that you experienced it? And then think about, there are probably very few of you that can go back and experience and remember something as far back as 4 or 5 or younger. But go back and think about the things before that. How do you know that those things are real? The things your parents told you, the things that your grandparents told you, if you were lucky enough to experience grandparents. I need a bigger coffee cup. How do you know that those things are real? And then, of course, if you haven't followed that train of thought, think about the fact that unless you experienced it physically, you actually have nothing to base it on other than a little bit of trust and delusion. And there's a fine line between those two things. Delusion in terms of, well, they wouldn't lie to me, would they? Well, if that's what they know, if that's their frame of reference, then that's what they know. They might not do it to you intentionally, but it could possibly be that they did it unknowingly, told you a story of a thing that was, a thing that happened, that they heard from somebody else that heard. And so the story goes backwards in time, apparently. And of course that opens a whole other can of worms, time. Anyway, let's not delve too far down the rabbit hole. Point is this, that in terms of a frame of reference for reality, what do a lot of people have to work with? People in this country, I look at the chaotic mindset of people leading up to the elections and the terrible games that are being played, the dishonest games that are being played, the lies, the stories that are being told, the manipulation of truth, the manipulation of the story to make people behave in a particular way. Instead of people just behaving in a way that seems truthful to them, instead of people behaving in a way that seems that it's a good way to behave, a way to act that is honest, that doesn't satisfy only their ego. I think that's one of the reasons I absolutely despise this whole political game, the system. The system is predicated on the fact that people will behave the way they are behaving. And there's evidence of that throughout the entire, well, in the recent years anyway. It can all get a little depressing, I suppose, if you think about it too much, because if you consider that the system itself is broken to the point where it perpetuates the same problem, then there doesn't seem to be too much hope. Now, I'm not a great one for hoping that everything will be okay. I don't go through life thinking about, I hope it'll all be all right, or we'll pray about that. No, I tend to try and work in a particular direction, look at the thing and say, well, we should go in that direction because A, B, C, here are the reasons. It will be better for me, for you, for everybody. It'll make the near future a better place to be, if you can imagine the near future as being a place. I've been thinking a lot recently about this situation with the system and the people that are immersed in it. and the way in which the majority of people don't care for one reason or another, and how that affects the people that do tend to think a bit more and do care and have got a slightly longer term view of what happens. And I'm talking about the people that are not ruled by or driven by ego, because that's what it boils down to. Self-aggrandizement and ego and greed and self-enrichment and all of that. And not to say that self-enrichment's not a bad thing. I mean, you've got to do something to try and get ahead and maybe make sure that there's a little bit of stock at the end of the month. But I think you know what I mean. I wonder about those masses of people that are motivated by the wrong thing, and how the lack of thinking of the others, whether it's out of inability or disinterest, I wonder if they could ever be aware of how they perpetuate the problem. Anyway, I thought I'd waffle at this thing for a while this morning. Don't know who watches it or if it's actually of any worth other than getting some of the non-flowing thought out of my mind in the morning. It is what it is. Maybe it'll go into history. Maybe someone desperate in the future will look at this and go, we seem to be repeating the same problem ad nauseum. I've joked about it in the past, about how 2,000 years ago there was probably a Greek or a Roman or two that were having a conversation and carrying on about how broken the system was. I don't think much has changed. And I think that's because human beings don't learn too much from history, irrespective of how real it is. The story that they make up as it goes forward, how it's written, should contain some elements of truth and should contain some components of that story should give away a few hints that people would be prepared to follow to make things better for everyone. Doesn't seem to be the case. Seems to be the case that everyone's, that is within the system that gives direction to people, the planet, everything, seems as though those people are motivated in general by just perpetuating the same mistakes. Anyway, enough waffling. Have a happy Wednesday. I'm going to go and catch up on things that I should have done on Saturday.